Okay, so are you ready to like dive deep into this book?
Yeah.
It's Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, and uh it's got me absolutely hooked.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, spaceships, a lone amnesiac scientist, and like a mystery that could literally end all life in the solar system. Talk about high stakes.
Yeah, no kidding. I think what really grabbed me was how ingenious it all was. Like, you've got this guy who wakes up on a spaceship,
Yeah.
and he has no clue, like, who he is or even what he's doing there. But he has to use everything he knows about science to figure out, like, what's going on and how to, save the day.
It's totally like waking up from a dream and you're in the middle of an exam that you didn't study for.
Yeah.
Except instead of just failing a class, the
Yeah.
fate of like humanity is on your shoulders.
Directly, no pressure. Right.
Right. And the way Weir reveals the story is so cool. He gives you bits of information along with the protagonist. It's masterful. You're putting together this puzzle at the same time he is, from these like cryptic equations scribbled on the walls
Yeah.
to this strange high-tech equipment he's surrounded by. Yeah. I was so hooked from like page one. And as he starts to remember things, it's like watching a detective story, but instead of fingerprints and clues, it's all like physics and chemistry and some crazy astrophysics.
Yeah, and that's what's so great about the book. The science is like woven into the story. It never feels like a lecture or a textbook. It's all part of this thrilling, edge of your seat ride.
You're learning about things like relativistic travel and alien biology without even realizing it because you're just so caught up in the story.
Right. Like take the Petrova line, for example. Imagine looking up at the stars and you see them dimming one by one and you know it's not natural, but something way more sinister.
Oh, it's creepy. What is the Petrova line? Is it some sort of cosmic event?
Well, without giving too much away, let's just say it has to do with something called astrophage. And trust me, it's a concept that will make you look at the sun in a whole new light.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. So we've got this amnesiac scientist, a spaceship, and a phenomenon that's threatening the universe. Where does Project Hail Mary fit into all this?
So imagine this. You're facing a crisis that could wipe out all life as we know it. What do?
Panic.
Well, you could. But in this case, they send out a desperate mission to the stars, hoping to find a solution. That's Project Hail Mary.
Like a Hail Mary pass into space.
Pretty much.
Sounds risky.
Risky is an understatement. This is a one-way mission, a last-ditch effort to save humanity. And our amnesiac scientist is at the helm of it all.
Wait, so he's piloting the spaceship, but he doesn't even remember who he is. How is that even possible?
That's the question, isn't it? How do you prepare someone for a mission they don't even remember accepting? And that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Okay, you totally got me hooked now. This is getting good. But you mentioned an alien earlier. Don't tell me he finds alien life out there too.
Let's just say our hero is in for a big surprise. When he realizes he's not alone on this mission, he encounters an alien, who he names Rocky. And things get really interesting from there.
An alien named Rocky. That's unexpected. What's he like? Little green guy with antennas.
Not quite. He's something else entirely. Imagine a creature with an ammonia-based biology, a metal-rich body, and a way of perceiving the world through sound.
Whoa, that's unlike anything I've ever heard of.
And let me tell you, their attempts to communicate are hilarious. Picture this. Our scientist trying to explain basic physics to an alien who relies on sonar and jazz hands to talk.
Oh, man. I can already see the potential for some serious misunderstandings there. But how do they even begin to bridge that gap? They're from different worlds, literally.
That's the core of their journey. They have to overcome huge cultural and linguistic barriers to even understand each other, let alone work together to solve the mystery of the Petrova line and find a way to save their species.
Okay, this is too good. I need to read this book right now.
Trust me, you're in for a wild ride.
So we've got a lone human, an alien named Rocky, who like communicates with jazz hands, and they're stuck on a spaceship together. Trying to figure out how to save everyone from this sun-eating astrophage. I can only imagine the conversations.
Oh yeah, their dynamic is what makes this book so unique. You've got these two beings from completely different worlds, different ways of thinking, languages, everything.
It's like the ultimate buddy cop movie, except the buddies are from different planets. And the stakes are a little higher.
Exactly. And just like in those buddy cop movies, they have to learn to, trust each other and work together, even though they're so different.
Yeah.
But instead of chasing criminals, they're chasing scientific discoveries.
So how do they even start to communicate? Did they find some, universal translator lying around the ship?
Nope. Nothing that convenient. It's all about problem solving and ingenuity. They start with the basics. Trying to establish a common understanding of things like up, down, hot, cold, like the building blocks of language.
I bet that was frustrating. Trying to talk to someone who'd doesn't even have the same concept of time. We were talking earlier about how Iridians have a different perception of time. How does that even work?
Well, think about it. We experience time based on, like, our planet's rotation, our biology, our lifespan. But what if you lived on a planet with totally different conditions, where things moved a lot slower? What if you lived 10 times longer than us?
I guess your sense of time would be completely different. A minute to them might feel like an hour to us.
Yeah, and that makes for some interesting conversations. There are these hilarious scenes where the human is, like, impatient. He wants to get things done quickly. But Rocky's just taking his sweet time, thinking everything through.
That's funny.
But you know, that difference in perspective actually helps them.
How so?
They challenge each other's assumptions.
Oh, I see.
The human brings his knowledge of Earth science and technology, and Rocky brings a whole new way of looking at the universe.
Right.
They have to come up with creative ways to explain things, and that helps them understand both the science and each other better.
So it's not just about the scientific discoveries, it's about their relationship too.
Yeah, exactly. And their friendship is one of the best things about the book. They're both so far from home and facing impossible odds, but they find comfort in each other. And that becomes their strength.
It makes you wonder, what if first contact with aliens was like this? You know, not with fear and hostility, but with curiosity and a willingness to learn.
Yeah, it's a more optimistic take than we usually see.
Right.
But it also feels really realistic. These characters are scientists, driven by a desire to learn and solve problems.
And they're funny. It's not all doom and gloom.
Oh,
There's humor throughout the whole story,
yeah.
often coming from their attempts to understand each other's cultures. Like you mentioned Rocky's jazz hands earlier. I have to know what that's all about.
You'll have to read the book to find out. But it's a great example of how Weir mixes science with humor and heartwarming moments.
I'm definitely adding it to my reading list. Speaking of science, though, this book gets into the details, right?
Mm.
How much research did Weir have to do for this?
A lot. From orbital mechanics to exotic matter. He definitely did his homework. But it's never presented in a boring way. He makes even the most complicated concepts easy to understand and interesting.
It's like he's saying, hey, you don't need a PhD to enjoy this. Just come along for the ride and I'll show you some cool stuff.
Exactly. He's great at explaining complex things, making you feel like you're right there figuring it out with the characters.
So it's a learning experience disguised as an adventure. I like that. But with all the problem solving and alien bonding, they haven't forgotten about Earth, right?
No, the fate of Earth is always present.
Okay, good.
We see what's happening back home through news reports and the protagonist's memories. And let's just say things aren't looking so good.
So it's not just about saving themselves, it's about saving an entire planet.
Yeah, and that pressure keeps building. They're racing against time, facing setbacks, dealing with limited resources. And just when they think they've got a breakthrough, something new comes up to challenge them.
Like what?
Well, remember how we were talking about Astrophage?
Yeah, the terrifying sun-eating microorganism.
Right. Well, it turns out Astrophage is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. And that puzzle involves another creature, even more bizarre and dangerous than Astrophage. It's called a Tamiba.
A Tamiba? What in the world is that?
Think of it as the ultimate Astrophage predator. And this discovery changes everything. Suddenly, they're not just trying to understand Astrophage, they're trying to understand this entire alien ecosystem they've found.
So now it's even more complicated. And I'm guessing this Tamiba isn't exactly friendly.
Let's just say it creates a whole new set of challenges for them, and it leads to some of the most intense and suspenseful parts of the book.
Okay, I need to know more. What happens next?
Well, that's a story for another time, but I'll leave you with this. The Tamiba raises the stakes even higher, and it forces our heroes to question everything they thought they knew, to make some very difficult choices.
Choices that could determine the fate of 2 species. Wow, I can't wait to find out what happens. But for now, we'll have to leave our listeners on the edge of their seats, eager to dive into Project Hail Mary themselves. So before we were talking about that Tamiba creature or predator that feeds on Astrophage, it sounds like something out of a movie.
It definitely changes things a lot. Remember how our heroes thought they were starting to understand Astrophage, figuring out how it works, how to contain it, maybe even use it as fuel?
Right.
Well, the Tamiba throws all that out the window.
So what do? They can't just ignore it.
Exactly. They have to shift gears completely. They need to learn everything they can about the Tamiba, how it behaves, what it's weak to, and most importantly, how to stop it from messing up their mission.
So they went from solving one mystery to an even bigger one. And they're millions of light years away with limited resources and time running out.
Yeah, and it's not just about scientific curiosity anymore. They realize this Tamiba could be the key to saving both Earth and Rocky's planet, But capturing and studying one of those things is no easy task.
This is where the book shows how amazing human ingenuity can be, don't you think? They're basically MacGyvering their way through space, using anything they can find to build labs, traps, all sorts of stuff.
There's this one scene where they're trying to catch a tomoeba, and they end up using a modified vacuum cleaner.
Wow.
It's hilarious and brilliant at the same time. It's a perfect example of how Weir mixes science with humor to keep you entertained.
It's like that saying, necessity is the mother of invention. But it's not all fun and games, right? There are some pretty serious moral dilemmas, too.
Definitely. This was supposed to be a one-way mission. Our main character knew he was probably going to die in space, sacrificing himself to save humanity. But now, with Rocky's help and the possibility of using the Comoeba, there's a chance he could go back to Earth.
That's going to be a tough thing to think about. On one hand, he has a chance to go home, see his family and friends. But on the other hand, staying means he could save billions of lives.
And that's what makes Weir's writing so good. He doesn't avoid those difficult questions. He makes you think about what you would do in that situation. What would you be willing to sacrifice? And what does home really mean?
Those are questions for another deep dive entirely.
Exactly.
But we're almost out of time. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners before we wrap up? Any final thoughts on Project Hail Mary?
Just this, it's more than just a space adventure or a sci-fi thriller. It's about friendship, about pushing the limits of what we know about the strength of the human spirit. It leaves you with a sense of wonder that stays with you long after you've finished the book.
I couldn't agree more. If you're looking for a book that will make you laugh and think, and maybe even look at the stars in a whole new way, then Project Hail Mary is for you.
Trust us.
You won't regret it. And that's it for this week's deep dive into Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. We hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep exploring.